What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Ketchpalia, sitting on the couch, making some money, investing in fractional real estate online. As usual, today I'm looking at Mogul's two newest offerings, the Rocco and the Russell. These are two Padsplits in Tampa, Florida. They're actually right next to each other. They appear to both be relatively new builds, I think 2021. Couple of things right off the bat. They're slightly higher year one yield than we've seen lately, right? We've been seeing high sevens and this is low eights, so slightly higher year one yields. I'm going to get into that a little bit. You'll notice these have both homes are operating as Padsplits already. The T12 actuals are over $40,000 in rental income in each property. Let's keep that in mind when we jump into it. Into the analysis of the rents. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about, I know we've talked about Tampa, the market in general, but I don't think we were looking at the city proper for most of the properties that I looked at. So I pulled that up real quick, and it looks like, the number one thing I'm always looking for is population growth. And I mean, look, it's fantastic, right? So that's always a good sign. If you look at, I am familiar with this market a little. I have a good friend that invests here, and it's always seemed to be a swingier market than most. I think that's true about Florida in general, but just certain markets, feel the boom and bust cycles more than others, and that's my impression of Tampa. Although I don't have any data to back that up. It does look like in the last year, the price in this zip code is down 5.5%. So that's not as far down as we've seen in some markets, but it's worse than others. You will see though, this shape of the price curve looks pretty similar. The price history curve looks pretty similar to what we've seen in other markets. And you can see currently the average pricing is really close to what where we had that 2022 peak in most markets. So this market's actually doing pretty good compared to, a lot that we've looked at. And Zillow thinks over the next year it's going to go up 0.3%. That's not nearly as good as some of the other ones we've looked at recently. But again, I think, this is always whenever we're making predictions about the future, in these macro, there's going to be macro factors that impact it more than anything. I think it's relatively easy to look at two markets and figure out which one is going to perform better on a relative basis, right? Which one of these two markets is going to do better than the other. But the direction that all the markets are going to go is, really tied to interest rates, macro economy factors, stuff like that. So I do like to look at markets and figure out, pick ones that I think will be winners. And even that, is not guaranteed. But I think that is a better strategy than try to just predict which way the market as a whole is going to go. Before I forget, please like and subscribe. In the description of this video, I have links to all the places where I'm currently investing in fractional real estate online. Ooh, it's been a long day. Mogul being one of them. So, feel free to use any of those links. Some of them will give you some free money when you make your first investment. Some of them say they will, and they're still not at the moment. But anyway, do your own due diligence on them. Read the terms of services. Oh my goodness, this is a rough day. I think I just said that a second ago. Sorry. But there's going to be, you're going to want to do your own due diligence on every single platform that I talk about, every single property. Just because you see me putting money on some of them doesn't mean that you should. There's definitely, there's been failures in this space. There's definitely going to be more. It's one of the reasons I'm spreading my investments across multiple platforms is I'm not sure yet which ones are going to be the winners and losers. I've been saying for a while, Mogul's my favorite of these platforms. I haven't bought one of their properties in I guess I bought one a couple months ago now, but I haven't bought many of their recent offerings. I've had a lot of concerns. And so at some point I have to see if I have to readjust that. I don't have another one that I would say, oh yes, this one's my favorite either though. It's just tough, right? I feel like as all of them grow, a lot of them start off very promising, and I think they realize they have to bring really good deals to the platform to get momentum initially. And then, well, I guess that's not true of all the platforms, right? There's some that they're all, they've been bringing trash the whole time. I didn't say that about Lofty. I'm just, in general, this happens, right? But yeah, I think that, and obviously, I don't think these are necessarily terrible deals that we're looking at today. I'm going to get into my concerns about them. I also want to mention too, I got quite a bit of feedback. I asked the question, should I just do, a little bit of info on every single property that comes out that I can, or do the longer in-depth due diligence videos? Most of the feedback I got said, hey, just try to, share your thoughts on all of them that you can. And if you have to skip some stuff, do that. And so that's the format I'm doing, especially where I'm doing 2 properties today. And so you'll see, although they're very similar in size, although not exactly the same size, 1352 versus 1338. It's pretty strange to me because it looks like they were built at the same time or very, very close in time to each other. There's a picture in one of these listings. I think it's this one where it's just all, this was vacant land not that long ago. So it looks like they were built side by side, but not identical. You can tell the roof material, it's at least a different color if it's not a different roof. But in general, the properties are extremely similar, although look, no gutters on the front of this one. No downspouts there with that one. I'm always worried about where are gutters and downspouts because it's important to get the water away from the foundation, especially, newer homes. Those early years are when I'm most worried about, are we going to have settling and whatnot? And it's awesome to, not have water near your foundation for that. Anyway, or not, have it a whole bunch once it rains. So let's see, what are we going to talk about with these? There's the purchase price on each of them is $335,000. It appears they're both being bought basically by the same seller. They're both operating as Padsplits currently. The manager that they have listed for this is going to be Dream America, who appears to specialize in co-living properties, which is good. It sounds like they do a turnkey program where they buy it, they renovate it, and either sell it to investors and then continue to manage, or I think they own some of their own as well. Sometimes I get a little nervous about these turnkey operators because, a lot of their profit is often, and I'm not saying that's the case here, but it's often built into a lot of times they have their own crews that are doing the renovations and the construction, and they have profit built into that. They sell the property, they're making the money on that sale, not necessarily on needing, having the properties continue to perform well. Although, if they're getting paid a percentage of revenue, which is the typical property management agreement, although I don't know what they're doing here, at least you have some alignment of interest. But, there's a long history of these companies, turnkey companies basically is what they call themselves. It's been primarily in the long-term rental space where they buy a home, renovate it, put a tenant in it, sell it to investors, continue to manage it. And there's been just so many of those that are, selling absolute trash properties to people. They do poor renovations. They put in any tenant, the first tenant they can find, not having high standards. Now, obviously, that's not every single one of those companies, but there's just enough of them out there that always makes me a little nervous about this situation. Now, that being said, the Mogul guys are savvy business people. I think they'd probably, vet any companies that they work with. And so hopefully that's not the case here. It's just something that I've seen over and over again. So I wanted to mention it in this space. It is. It's also a new asset class, right? Padsplits have not been around for a long time. Co-living. I mean, we used to call them boarding houses, there's been rent by the room rentals for a very long time, but it's really become, it's become not. I don't want to say a fad because I don't think it's going away anytime soon, but it's gotten a lot of attention lately, and it's because of the creation of websites like Padsplit, like Furnace Finder, and things like that. It's become a more mainstream asset class because you now have, investors have a little bit more tools to manage them and to attract, rent by the room guests or members, or, however they set that up. And so I was looking at this company was formed in 2018. Actually seems maybe they were an early mover in the space, or it's also possible that they were just doing regular rental properties and shifted. I'm not sure. But anyway, that's the company. I thought, I'm going to start trying to point those out more often, because they always do put it down here, who's going to manage it, who's going to finance it and whatnot. I did think that it was interesting to see the Rocco is sold out much slower than the Russell, right? Like it's $20,000 behind. I don't really see any meaningful difference between the two, unless you're just picking like based on the looks of it, or they are right next to each other. The insides are a little bit different. I noticed they have different backsplash and whatnot, but it's not, it seems to be aesthetic reasons. I guess, if I was going to pick one, the Russell is slightly larger, right? 14 square feet larger. So if you're paying the same price for each, why not buy the bigger one? Although if you have the same amount of revenue, maybe I want the smaller one if I can still rent out 5 bedrooms and I'm getting the same price. Because, you get taxed on square footage and whatnot. Your heating and cooling a certain amount. So sometimes smaller can be better in that regard. Okay, so I said I'm going to keep these quick, and then this is not quick at all. Yeah, this is, let's see. I did look at the spot crime. This was a really weird one. They have a ton of these that just basically show up as other. A lot of these this is only 4 days of crime, so it's a lot of little things that popped up in 4 days. But several of them just say misdemeanor. Some of them say disturbance. I mean, this one was obviously I think this one was an actual assault. But, not a terrible spot crime map for the types of neighborhoods that we're normally seeing Padsplits. I just thought it was noteworthy that we had so many of these just non-standard ones that were either misdemeanors, disturbance, something like that. Let's close that. I did look at the flood map, but I don't think I left it up. Again, in the interest of time and just not making these crazy long videos and taking a lot of time on it. Okay, so the properties are right next to each other, so you'd expect that they should be valued about the same. But I looked up each address because, okay, this one says it was sold in November 2025 for $233,000. Wait, what's going on here? Is this the wrong address? I'm looking at the wrong address, aren't I? What am I doing here? Yeah, I am. Let's ignore that one. Sorry. Oh, I should cut that out, but I'm not going to because, it just would take too much time. I don't know how I got on that one. I think I was looking at nearby properties. All right, let's look at these two. We've got, and now my computer's frozen. You can see Realtor estimates the value of $309 for one of them. Okay, now I got Zillow to pop up. I don't have Zestimates for either one of these on Zillow. So I'm not even sure what's generating this 266 number, because like if you look back at past sales, the last time it sold was as a lot. It was sold for $34,000, but it was a lot. It wasn't it wasn't the house itself. And so, I'm not sure where this is coming from, because it's not a Zestimate either. I don't know. And it's not the tax, the assessed value, unless it's pulling the 2025 assessed value, which maybe it is. I don't know. But so I thought that was weird. Zillow doesn't have a number. It doesn't know how many beds or baths. It thinks it's, this is probably the square footage of the lot is my assumption. For this one, again, still doesn't have anything. This is the neighboring property. No, right. Now that I showed you the wrong one before, I want to make sure. 4405 North Cortland, yep. 4407 Cortland Street. Yeah, I don't have any idea how I pulled up that other one too. But yeah, no estimates available for either. Realtor though, yes, okay, we do have this correct. And so estimated value 309,400. Realtor on this one, say right address, 322, but like it says it's land, so it doesn't make any sense at all for it to think that land is worth that much. But both of those are, we're paying $335 we're at least somewhat in the range. We're close. It does feel a little bit like we're overpaying based on both of those, but and it looks like they're operating. So we're buying turnkey, so it looks like we're getting the furniture and everything. And I didn't see with the breakdown in the in this section here, miscellaneous cost. This is 6%. I think this one is usually where we see the Mogul fee, and then there's a little bit more built in miscellaneous costs. Is that right? I say that now. Yeah, 20,000 here. So what do we have there? 20,100. Yeah, so that's where we usually see this. It's kind of interesting because they say, okay, we also have startup and operations. I'm not sure what we're doing here because their fee isn't 6% typically. I don't know if this just is feeding in improperly and like they bumped this up a little bit so that for some extra costs. I really don't understand what's happening there. Because usually this is just what their fee is, but usually it's 5%. So maybe we need to take another look and see, did their fees change? Is there something else going on? Why is that number larger than usual? And is it, or is that thing just telling us the wrong thing? So let's do math, right? Whenever we're in doubt, let's do some math. So 20,100 by 335. Now that is 6%. So, do they have something else baked into there, or did their fees go up? I don't know, because they had talked about their fees coming down. And then here, when it says your miscellaneous, it's got your startup. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Those would be questions to ask them. If you just respond to, whenever you get these emails, if you just respond to whoever sends it, usually they get back to you quickly. I did get some answers that I was just like, I don't know that that's really answering. It wasn't super useful answer, but followed up and got good ones. Usually I get pretty good answers from them. So I think it's starting to look like maybe growing is causing them some issues. The pace of putting out properties. I don't know. I mean, that's my perspective as an outsider. I think it's bound to happen at different points in time, right? As you're really pushing to grow and put properties out. Your general, like as we've seen, the quality of the deals seems to be going down. Some of the even the write-ups and responses, like, okay, what do we actually mean by this being turnkey? Like, I would love to know. Nowhere on this listing, I don't think, did it say where, what last year's revenue is. Like in the email. Oh, and this is important though, right? The T12 actuals show there's $40,000 in rental income. I'm jumping into this. I know we were talking about we're going to get back to this. I wanted to talk about one more thing on the asset value, and then we'll get back to this. So let's see. Get rid of all these. So Realtor was really the only one that gave me some kind of estimate, and I think it's because they're new builds. I've run into this a lot with new builds. These are the properties when they're being built. This is just the street view. I did, take a little walk around here. It is not the most desirable neighborhood. There's a lot of homes that need some work, although this image capture is from 2023. So, maybe a lot of those have been renovated. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing little store here on the corner, but it is nice to have one right there. I did see, signs of graffiti and disrepair and whatnot. And again, we're talking about mostly 3-year-old pictures, but I can't imagine it changed too much in that time. And that's something, unfortunately, we don't have the benefit to know. But so as far as the valuation goes, they're doing this thing again where, okay, this is the two properties are here and our comps are here, here, and here. I hate when you cross over, any kind of major road. It seems really unlikely to me that you couldn't find some comps to use in here. The fact that these three are all closer to each other than they are to the subject property bothers me, so because it again looks like they're cherry picking comps, to justify a value. Now, I kind of get it because, okay, well, these are brand new homes. Maybe there's not a ton of brand new homes in the area. But when I was looking at the comps, they're not all brand new homes either. So that's not what they were doing. These here, they've just flipped the beds and baths. They put 2 beds on all of them instead of 2 baths, right? So I think if you flip those, then we're actually have the right thing. When I said, when looking at the other stuff, it doesn't seem like they're super far off with the valuation anyway, based on all the looking around that I did, but I'm not excited about it. I don't think like it's dead on the number. And so when you combine that with, okay, it looks like we really did some work picking properties that were just not our same neighborhood. I never like when you have to, when they do that. So I don't know. We do have, well, I didn't actually look at the contract, but you want to look at the contract, make sure they have the appraisal contingency in there if this is something that you're going to invest in. But now I keep going back to it. I want to go. Okay, now let's talk about the revenue. So they said, okay, it's had over $40,000 in the last 12 months in rental income. But on both of these, and the numbers I believe are identical, so I'm just going to look at one. They're saying $52,800. That's a big jump from over 40,000, right? Like that's depending on what over 40,000 means. It definitely wasn't 49 or 50. It definitely wasn't 50, right? So we're and they didn't even, you didn't say over 45 or something like that. So it makes me think low 40s. When I pull up the, pull up the tool, and this is the Padsplit tool where I can put in, and let me just make sure, because last time I had the wrong address in there initially. Yeah, I've got the right address, and I did 4 bedrooms or 4 rooms that have shared bathroom and one that's private. This is the most generous take. You'll notice that it doesn't actually tell us, right? And that's one of the things that in the property description makes a big difference, right? Because when you have these numbers are auto generated by the calculator, so it thinks in this area you're getting $70 more per week for the private bathroom. And so then I do calculate earnings and then view breakdown. Move me back up here. And so it thinks, this number here, effective gross rent minus platform fees, is what should usually equal Mogul's top line revenue. This number here, usually, at least on older ones, look like that's what they were adding up to. Well, now we're really far off in that, right? We're like 42,000, so minus 6,000, we're at like 36,000. Which is really far from 52. So that worried me quite a bit when I saw that. And then I also found, this is a listing, just went up 13 hours ago. This looks like it's the Russell, because the way I've been being able to tell the difference is just looking at the pictures. The backsplashes are different in the 2 properties, right? You can see this is the Rocco. This is the Russell, right? Like this looks identical to this one, or this one, right? This is on Realtor. They say $780 a month. Actually says $182 per week. Let's say all 5 were priced at this, right? 182, because I don't know for sure that one has an ensuite, right? But so 182 times 5 times 52, it's only $47,000 per year. Let's be really generous and say, we got another $70 times 52 plus that 47. I know there was some change, but so that gets us over 50 in our assumptions. But that's if you don't have any. So when we look at the calculator, right, it's giving us move-in fees, vacancy, concessions. Like if we had 50, if we got to 50. Getting us down to 42. So my math that I just did there actually gets us really close to this gross potential number, which then again nets us 36. So I don't know what we're doing. It seems like usually I can back into their math much easier than I'm doing here. So that's the 182 a week. If you look on here, right now, rooms from 174 a week. This is the actual pad split listing, and they say just one room available. So I'm really nervous about this projection, right? I don't know how we get to 52,800. In general, these, Mogul has been really conservative with their estimates, in my opinion. The way they've looked at, pad split numbers, especially early on, they were, okay, these are the actuals, and we're underwriting less than the actuals. And this is like, okay, we had over 40K in rental income, and so we're underwriting 52. Or did I say 52? Is that what it is? Yeah, 52,800. Like, I don't like that at all. Like, I mean, that makes me really nervous about the revenue, about hitting those projections. I don't know if that's like what they're, the new property manager, I don't know if that's what they're telling him it's going to do. Like, oh, we're already running some in this area, and we know we're going to be able to do better. I have no idea. I think that it is, in my mind, it's pretty crazy to make that jump without giving us some explanation in the listing why we're going to get that big jump, right? So yeah, that worries me. The valuation, again, same issues as before. Although I don't think we're super far off valuation wise. I actually, when I first saw that, before I got to the revenue, I was pretty tempted by this one. Oh, because one of the things that I really like about it is this is a 5-bedroom, 2-bath pad split. If you've watched my other videos when I'm talking about pad split, I get nervous when we have 8, 9, 10 bedrooms that sometime in the future the municipality might shut down the rent by the room model. And then when you have so many bedrooms, it's, this would be, I believe, pretty simple to turn back into a 3-2 with a living room and dining room or something like that. Or, if the city just puts limits on how many that you can have, 5 seems like a very reasonable number, right? I mean, it's not, it's I think that there's less risk when you have less bedrooms, obviously. But one of the things, so I looked at doing this here in San Antonio, and it's hard to make your numbers work, because of things like, okay, you're paying for your lawn service, you're paying for your cleaning crews. I think when you have 2 of these small ones side by side, you can get some economy of scale, probably negotiate a deal. Okay, come out and clean them both for one flat rate. Yes, it's going to be more than if you were just cleaning one house, but it should be less than if you're having them do 2 houses in 2 different parts of town or something like that. And the same thing for the lawn care. So I think that this is kind of getting the best of both worlds, right? You're getting 10 bedrooms all in one place, and so some economies of scale from that, but they are 2 distinct properties that are single family homes. So I really liked that. I mean, when I looked at these initially, I got excited. I was hoping to buy a piece of one or both, but the revenue projection just makes me really nervous that they're saying, we're trying to, if I annualize the numbers they give me here, I can't get to the number that they're talking about. If I if we look at the trailing number, it doesn't match up with what they're using. If anybody's already reached out to Mogul, I'd be curious, what they had to say about this. If I'm missing something, you guys can tell it. I've been fumbling my sentences and not super clear-headed. It is 3 a.m. It's been a super long day, super long week. So it's perfectly possible that I'm missing something, that my math is off. But I mean, this is really clear, right? 52,000 projected rental income, 48,000 T12 actuals for each property, or 40,000. I think I just said 48. Hopefully I'm not just confusing this more. So for me, I'm definitely going to pass on these unless some new info comes out that really explains, like, why are we making a 20% jump in revenue? Why is our annualized revenue going to be higher than when I just take the new listing numbers and multiply it out, right? Like, that's 174 a week for these ones, which is like even less. I did that math on the 182. are they getting more for some of the rooms that are already rented? Is there, are they getting a bigger premium for an ensuite? I mean, there could be reasons why, but I just can't make that jump without getting some sort of an explanation why. And this kind of stuff always bothers me, right? When you make these little mistakes. And I know, like I said, that's one of the things that I think they are just experiencing some growing pains. But I'd really like to see them slow down, try to find deals that are more, that look a lot more like the deals they were bringing to us a year ago. I mean, I guess the market's shifted. It's clearly gotten harder for them to find those deals, because it's not as if there's no benefit to them to bring ones to us that are worse than what they could be getting, right? But it's been interesting to me that all of the recent deals have looked, somewhat worse than all the deals we were getting about a year ago, and it looks like they're stretching more on their. I mean, this one is clearly stretching more on their underwriting than what we've seen. And again, maybe they have a good explanation as to why. But we're not getting it, right? Like, they didn't give that explanation to us. So, and that's everything I've got to say about that for today. If you're going to buy this one, you think I'm missing something, definitely let me know. Put it in the comments, jump in the Discord. I don't think I mentioned it. In the description of this video, there's a link to the Discord I have set up. There's over 200 of us in there talking about all different fractional real estate investing platforms. A couple of platform creators stop by. It's a good place to just share ideas and whatnot. If you do join and somebody who looks like me is DMing you, it's probably not me, because I'm never trying to sell you anything. Never trying to sell you a service, a course, an investment. If somebody's talking to you about that stuff, it's not me. So there are some like fake, bot type accounts out there. Make sure you're careful of that. Yeah, let me know what you think about these ones and your thoughts on Mogul overall. Like, am I just overreacting, right? Like, did we just get really spoiled by some of the early Padsplits? And, and 8%, like, I'm not even complaining about their new normal. If I would have bought this if I felt comfortable in that 8%, right? Like, if it didn't seem like we're really stretching on the revenue side. And, I was even happy because I looked at the valuation first and I was like, okay, I can't find a whole bunch on it, but it doesn't seem like, it seems like maybe we're paying a little bit more, but it's new construction and maybe a lot of the comps that Zillow's picking up is not working. I know it's always tough when the last sale was land and the car, because there's just not that data. The platforms don't have the beds and baths and square footage of the property and whatnot. So, I was actually thinking that I was going to buy some of this until I started digging into the revenue side, and that really killed it for me. And it's unfortunate, because I do like this platform a lot. I'd like to buy more. I think the Blitzen's the last one that I bought. I haven't put any money to work on here, since the Blitzen. Before that was the Swift. That was quite a while ago. But like the Gilmore, the Pinkman, all of the early Padsplits, or most of the early Padsplits, I'm really happy with. And I wasn't putting a whole bunch of money in most of those, which is unfortunate. But especially too because on the projections for a lot of the short-term rentals, we've fallen short. It's why I really want to dig into, how are they analyzing these things? How are they making the projections? And without an explanation of why we're going to over 40 to over 50, I just can't get on board with these two. It's really unfortunate. Because I was excited to see, the small 5-bedroom, 2-bath homes. I think that's a good size to where you should have a lot of protection from some of the regulatory stuff that, could come down the road later. Anyway, that's all I've got to say for today. Sorry for the even more rambly nature of this video than usual. Until next time, I'm just going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.